Greetings, Space Cadets, it's SilentSigns from I Dream of Indie, and today we are taking a look at Dariusburst, another Chronicle EX+. This is an arcade shooter with its roots all the way back in the 1980s to the Darius series. However, this particular title is based off of 2010's Dariusburst, Another Chronicle, which then became Dariusburst, Another Chronicle EX, after which came Dariusburst Chronicles Saviors, and so then last but not least, this Dariusburst Another Chronicles EX Plus is the kind of sum total of all of those games, but instead of the Saviors mode, there is an event mode. Excuse my language, but that is quite a history. Now that my tongue is properly tied and my brain is properly scrambled, let's talk about what Dariusburst EX Plus Another Chronicles, whatever the name is all about. The year is 1904, and that's about all I can figure out. This is some sort of space battle going on, intergalactic nonsense. There are good guys and bad guys, and I think you're a good guy. I always try to be 100% honest with you all when I do these reviews, and I can confidently say I did not fully understand the plot that was going on here, and I think that's because there is such a long and storied history of Darius, and this is just my first experience with it, so I'm sure some of you who are fans of the series down in the comments below can let us know what's going on here, but all I know is shooty spaceships and giant spaceship villains that look like bugs and other various sea creatures. And now for some good news, you can actually play with up to 4 players local co-op in this game, which I always love to see. I did try it out with 2 players. I don't have 2 more friends to play with, probably because I couldn't even tell them the plot of the game. You have 4 modes of gameplay to choose from in Dariusburst, Another Chronicle EX+. The first is the original mode, where you have 12 total zones that you can play through with 3 different levels of difficulty. The next mode of gameplay is Original EX mode, which is pretty much exactly the same, except 12 different zones and much harder difficulty levels. Then you have Chronicle mode, where you can choose individual missions and kind of get a mishmash of levels and bosses. And last but not least, you have Event mode, which is special missions that were limited time in the arcade, as well as some exclusive new EX Plus missions. It's definitely a little bit confusing, especially that Chronicle mode for me from the get-go. Even just opening up this game, it tells you to press start to dig in, and it turns out that what they meant by start was actually triangle if you're playing it on the PlayStation 4 like I was, and that confused me right away because I kept finding myself in the options menu instead of the game. Should I have been playing this at an earlier time of day and not at my bedtime? Probably, but I would still say that the presentation needs a little bit of work and is definitely confusing, especially without a tutorial for beginners such as myself. Once you've settled on a mode, you get to pick a ship and off you go into space battle, where every mode kind of plays the same mechanics-wise. You have your basic shot and then a special. You could also change the direction of your shots using the R1 button. Apparently, you can also detach your special shot, which they call a burst cannon, and if it tells you anything about how well things were explained, I did not know this until I was reading up on the game after the fact. There are little tutorial cards at the beginning of each mode, and they kind of tell you a little bit about these things, but to be honest, there's so much on the screen at once that I found it just very overwhelming, and my eyes kind of skimmed over it, and I didn't really retain any of that information. This is definitely deeper than your average turn your brain off shoot 'em up game. There's a history to it, there's a lore to it. I just wasn't familiar with it, and I dove into the deep end head first, and I regretted not having a little bit of history beforehand. But at the end of the day, it's a shooter, and it's a pretty well-made one. It's definitely fun to play, even if you don't know what's going on, because, you know, big explosions and bullets everywhere. I definitely appreciated that they respected folks such as myself that are terrible at these games and did include a free play mode, so I didn't have to worry about lives or continues. But if you enjoy pain and you're a glutton for punishment, you can definitely turn off those unlimited lives and try for a high score. Graphics-wise, Dariusburst, another Chronicle EX Plus, it does look a little bit dated, but I do think it's a neat feature that they tried to mimic the dual monitors of the original arcade cabinet. Backgrounds are a little bland and repetitive, but you are in space, so I guess that makes sense. And the boss enemies are actually really cool looking. They all look like different creatures or insects, and I appreciated the kind of combination of living nature meets mechanical. I've said this in reviews before. I don't know why I think that's cool, but I do. And of course, we have to talk about perhaps my favorite aspect of Dariusburst, another Chronicle EX Plus, and that is the soundtrack. It is wild. If the traveling through space thing doesn't take you to another dimension, the soundtrack certainly will. I heard everything from operatic vocals to jazz sounds to rock, and there's even some traditional Japanese instrumentation thrown in there. There's so much going on. It feels like a fever dream, but in the best possible way. As a whole, between the package, the gameplay, the menus, I'm definitely confused, but also it's kind of in a good way. I want to know more. I want to play more. I enjoyed my time with Dariusburst, another Chronicle EX Plus, though I never want to say that title again. Thank you so much for watching the latest I Dream of Indie review. Before I go, I just want to thank our indie warriors Mitchell Hall, Kevilo, Bill Tikaz, Christian Cruz, Strict9, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Peach, Adriana Amato, CJR, Falco Lombardi, C. Coyle, Skeptism, Jen Rose, Jesse, CPM, and Julian Colbus. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you again for watching this video. Check out the description box for a bunch of other ways to support the channel, or just subscribe if you don't want to miss any of our reviews or previews.